latest on the Rwanda bill, and Rishi Sunak has suffered yet another blow to his flagship legislation. The government lost 7 votes as peers moved to water down the Prime Minister's hardline deportation plan. And MPs won't debate the legislation again, can you believe this, until after Easter. Meanwhile, 514 migrants crossed the Channel yesterday, making it the busiest day of migrant arrivals so far this year, and more have made the crossing today, we believe now taking the total nearer to 800. Well, I'm joined now by GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope. Chris, welcome back. We started the show at 3 o'clock with the astonishing revelation that Conservative MPs were cheering, whooping with delight.
Claimed by journalists outside the meeting room last night at the 1922 committee meeting. That's part of the story, not the full story. Certainly they were told that we're not going to try and get through the Rwanda bill next week as planned. Instead, we're going to wait till after Easter, so, you know, some of you can leave early if you want to. But we now know there is a 3-line whip for Monday, so MPs are expected back in to do a bit of work before they're off on their extended Easter break, when they should be campaigning for the local elections, of course, or the mayoral elections. Some others can go on holiday or go on trips and the rest. So that was the idea. But we have had some update through the programme. I've had a phone call from a very senior person in government who's made clear the idea had been to give the Safety of Rwanda bill royal assent on Thursday next week. But in fact, that's been delayed until April the 18th because, according to the sources in the government, Buckingham Palace is asking for longer to sign off and give royal assent to acts of Parliament. Entirely understandable. The King is being treated for cancer. He is doing government work, but this extended period is why they're targeting the April the 18th. I have, of course, gone to Buckingham Palace for comment on that.
And the overriding sentiment, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of responses, many of which aren't even printable.
No, we'll have a go.
Yeah. And that is, you know, what kind of emergency takes a month to solve?
It's Rishi Sunak's problem. Back in November, he said, I'm going to bring forward emergency legislation, get these flights taken off after the government won that Supreme Court battle. We all thought, right, here we go, we're going to see some kind of like counter-terrorism legislation going through in 72 hours, both houses of Parliament. Instead, it's taken the best part of 4 months by the time this gets through, if it is on April the 18th. The problem probably was going back to calling it originally emergency legislation when it hasn't been treated as such. It's gone through in the regular 3-month period of time it takes to go through. Today, in the House of Commons, in the briefing with the Prime Minister's official spokesman, they said they've got a migration emergency on, which, of course, some would say, well, if you've got an emergency on, why can't you fix it quickly? Why wait weeks and weeks to fix the plumbing?
Yeah, exactly. If there's an emergency flood, you'd be up to your neck in water. Maybe that's an ample metaphor for what's going on with this bill, which just feels doomed. And many people just don't have any faith in it now.
And we did ask the government, are you taking us for fools? Are you taking viewers of GB News, readers of newspapers for fools by saying it's an emergency and then dragging your feet over it? They've been pretty clear that's not the case. They do their best to get it through. Had they rushed it through the House of Commons, it would have got bogged down in the Lords, because they would then feel emboldened to give more scrutiny to legislation rushed through. So that's the explanation. But frankly, a 4-month wait for an emergency is too long.
Certainly is. Now, let's quickly have a dive into the polling out today. The Reform Party has gone up a percentile to 15%. The Conservatives down 1 to 19. Wow. And also delving into that, there are further discrepancies. Some of it says that Reform have overtaken the Conservatives in the north, gaining real traction with the working classes. The over 65s died in the will. Traditional Conservative
These numbers
voters.
Are a huge worry for the government. Tories down 19%, down 1. Labour on 44%. Reform up 1 at 15%. We're getting near margin of error, plus or minus 2% normally. So we're not there yet, but I can only imagine that Nigel Farage, obviously colleague at GB News, also had a role in the past at Reform UK. Were he to see that, he must be sorely tempted to get back involved. If he certainly got involved, pollsters tell us that might add maybe 5 points to Reform's polling and take them past the Tory party.
Which would be an astonishing moment indeed.
As things stand, he's undecided.
Yeah.